So, I had been married to Margaret for 10 years, and until recently I thought we had a pretty good thing going, or so I thought. We have a daughter, Emily, who just turned 18. She's my pride and joy, and I've always believed we had a solid family unit. But everything changed a few weeks ago when I stumbled upon a video on my daughter's phone that shattered my world. One evening, I was helping Emily transfer some photos and videos from her old phone to a new one she'd just bought. She handed me her old phone and asked me to save everything important. As I was going through her gallery, my heart stopped when I accidentally played a video. It was a shaky amateur recording of Margaret's lover, Jake, a guy I never really liked in our home, but it got worse, much worse. In the video, Jake was not only having sex with Emily, but he had also brought over some of his friends. One of the guys, after finishing with Emily, casually walked over to Margaret, who was standing nearby, looking disheveled. He smirked and said, "Your daughter is amazing. I'd compliment you too, but you don't look so good right now." Margaret just giggled like it was some inside joke. My blood boiled, and my vision blurred with rage. When I confronted Margaret about it, she didn't even try to deny it. She just stood there, arms crossed, with that bitchy attitude of hers, lying through her teeth about how it wasn't what it looked like. "Oh, come on, honey. Don't be so dramatic," she said. "It was just a bit of fun. You've been so busy with work. I needed some excitement." The lies kept coming. She blamed me for neglecting her, saying I was always too busy or too tired. She even tried to twist it, saying that I should have paid more attention to what was happening in our own home, as if it was my fault she decided to turn our lives into some kind of twisted reality show. I was furious, but I kept my cool. I knew I needed a plan to get my revenge. Margaret and her lover Jake had no idea who they were messing with. They didn't have kids of their own, and they wouldn't be prepared for what was coming. This wasn't just about their betrayal anymore. It was about taking back control and making sure they paid for what they did to our family. As I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, I replayed the video in my mind, fueling my anger and resolve. I needed to be smart about this. Margaret and Jake might think they've won, but they were about to face the consequences of their actions. I decided to dig deeper into Jake's life, find out everything I could use against him. Little did I know, the web of deceit I was about to uncover would make my initial rage seem like a minor annoyance. First, I reached out to an old friend of mine, Mike, who was a private investigator. I knew he'd be discreet and thorough. Mike agreed to help and began digging into Jake's background. Meanwhile, I started gathering evidence at home. I installed hidden cameras in various rooms, not just to catch any more of Margaret's infidelities, but also to document her lies and manipulations. I needed all the ammunition I could get. Within a week, Mike came back with a treasure trove of information. Jake was a lowlife, living off of others and getting involved in shady dealings. He had a history of using women for money and connections. The more I learned, the more disgusted I became, not just with Jake, but with Margaret for bringing this scumbag into our lives. It was clear that Margaret had fallen for his charms and lies. But she wasn't innocent in this either. Her behavior had been selfish and reckless. I decided to set a trap. I needed to catch them in the act, not just for my own satisfaction, but to have irrefutable evidence for the divorce proceedings. So I pretended to be out of town on a business trip. I left early in the morning, kissed Emily goodbye, and headed to a nearby motel where I could monitor the cameras and wait. Sure enough, that evening, Jake showed up at my house. Margaret greeted him at the door with a kiss, and they went inside. Watching them together was infuriating, but I held my ground. I needed them to feel secure, to let their guard down completely. I watched as they drank wine, laughed, and eventually started making out on the couch. My hands trembled with rage, but I knew the moment wasn't right yet. Suddenly, a knock at the door startled them both. Margaret got up to answer it, and to my surprise, it was one of Jake's friends from the video. He smirked and made himself at home, pouring himself a drink and making lewd comments about Margaret and Emily. It took everything in me not to storm back to the house and confront them right then and there. But I waited. I needed more. Soon, Jake's friend made a call, and within half an hour, 2 more of his buddies arrived. The house turned into a scene from one of those terrible reality TV shows, with Margaret acting like the queen bee among a pack of sleazy men. They were loud, obnoxious, and disrespectful, not just to me, but to Emily, who was thankfully out with friends. One of the guys turned to Margaret and said, "You know, your daughter is something else. Maybe we should invite her to join the party next time." Margaret laughed it off, but the casual cruelty of the comment confirmed what I had suspected. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a complete moral collapse on Margaret's part. I knew I had enough. I called Mike and told him to meet me at the house. When we got there, I burst through the door with Mike right behind me. The look on Margaret's face was priceless. Shock, fear, and then anger. Jake and his friends tried to act tough, but Mike's presence quickly deflated their bravado. "This is over," I said coldly. "Get out of my house." Margaret started to protest, but I cut her off. "You have no idea what you've done. This isn't just about us anymore. This is about Emily and the mess you've dragged her into." As they scrambled to leave, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The storm was just beginning, but at least I had taken the first step towards reclaiming my life and protecting my daughter. Margaret and Jake would soon learn that betrayal comes with a heavy price. The following days were a whirlwind of chaos and confrontation. Margaret was furious that I had dared to ruin her fun. She tried to manipulate and gaslight me, claiming I was overreacting and that it was just a phase. But I stood my ground, my resolve strengthened by the evidence I had collected. Emily was devastated when she found out. I tried to shield her from the worst of it, but she had seen the video too. The betrayal from her own mother and the violation she had experienced left her broken. I knew I had to be strong for her, even though I was barely holding it together myself. Margaret continued to lie, saying she had no idea what Jake and his friends were doing, and that she was just trying to have a good time. But the truth was out, and there was no going back. I contacted my lawyer and initiated divorce proceedings immediately. I wanted to make sure Margaret paid for her actions, both legally and financially. Emily decided to stay with her best friend for a while. I supported her decision, knowing she needed space to process everything. It was heartbreaking to see her so hurt and lost, but I promised myself I would help her rebuild her life no matter what it took. Margaret tried to sway Emily back to her side, but Emily wasn't having it. She had seen the truth with her own eyes, and no amount of manipulation could change that. Margaret's desperate attempts only pushed Emily further away, solidifying her decision to stay with her friend. Meanwhile, Mike continued to dig up more dirt on Jake. It turned out Jake had a history of exploiting women for money and connections. He was involved in several shady businesses and had a reputation for being a con artist. Armed with this information, I knew I could hit Jake where it hurt the most. One evening, while reviewing the hidden camera footage, I stumbled upon something unexpected. Margaret had invited Jake over again, despite everything that had happened. I couldn't believe her audacity. This time, I was ready. I had installed new cameras that were more discreet and better hidden. I watched as they lounged on the couch, talking in hushed tones. Jake mentioned something about a big score coming up, and how they could make a lot of money if they played their cards right. Margaret seemed intrigued, asking for more details. This was my chance to turn the tables on them. I recorded the entire conversation and immediately called Mike. We needed to act fast. Jake's plans were illegal, and I had the evidence to prove it. With Mike's help, I gathered all the information and presented it to the authorities. Jake's criminal activities were about to catch up with him, and Margaret would be dragged down with him. A few days later, the police raided Jake's apartment. They found incriminating evidence of his illegal dealings and arrested him on the spot. Margaret was also taken in for questioning, as she was implicated in their schemes. The news spread quickly, and soon everyone knew the truth about Margaret and Jake. The fallout was brutal. Margaret lost her job and her reputation. She had no friends left to turn to, and her family disowned her. She was left with nothing, while I focused on rebuilding my life with Emily. The divorce proceedings went smoothly, and I got full custody of Emily. Margaret was ordered to stay away from us and to pay child support. In the end, Margaret and Jake's betrayal had backfired spectacularly. They thought they could play with our lives and get away with it, but they underestimated my determination and the strength of my love for Emily. They were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives, while Emily and I moved forward, stronger than ever. With Margaret and Jake out of the picture, I turned my attention to healing and rebuilding our lives. Emily was my top priority. She was still dealing with the trauma and betrayal, and I knew it would take time for her to trust again. I made sure to be there for her, offering support and love whenever she needed it. We decided to move to a new house in a different part of town. It was a fresh start, away from the memories of Margaret and Jake. The new house was smaller but cozier, and we spent the first few weeks making it our own. We painted the walls, bought new furniture, and planted a garden in the backyard. It was a therapeutic process for both of us, and slowly but surely we began to find peace. Emily started seeing a therapist to help her work through her emotions. It was tough at first, but she gradually opened up about her feelings and started to heal. Her therapist recommended that we spend more time together, doing activities that we both enjoyed. We started going on hikes, cooking meals together, and even taking up painting. These moments helped us reconnect and strengthen our bond. One evening, Emily and I were sitting on the porch, watching the sunset. She turned to me and said, "Dad, I never thought we'd get through this, but I'm glad we're here now, just the two of us. I feel like we can finally move forward." Her words touched me deeply. It had been a long, painful journey, but hearing her say that made it all worthwhile. I knew we still had a lot of healing to do, but we were on the right path. Meanwhile, the fallout for Margaret and Jake continued. Jake was facing multiple charges for his illegal activities, and it looked like he was going to spend a long time in prison. Margaret's involvement in his schemes had left her with a tarnished reputation and legal troubles of her own. She tried to reach out to me several times, begging for forgiveness and a chance to make things right, but I refused to engage with her. She had made her choices, and now she had to live with the consequences. I focused on my job and made sure to balance work with spending quality time with Emily. My colleagues were supportive, understanding the difficult situation I had been through. I even managed to get a promotion, which helped stabilize our finances and allowed us to live comfortably. One weekend, Emily and I decided to take a trip to the beach. It was a spontaneous decision, and we packed our bags and drove down the coast. The sound of the waves and the smell of the salty air were incredibly soothing. We spent our days building sandcastles, swimming, and collecting seashells. In the evenings, we would sit by a bonfire, roasting marshmallows and talking about our hopes and dreams. During one of those quiet moments by the fire, Emily confided in me. "Dad, I've been thinking about what happened. It was horrible, and I still have nightmares sometimes. But I also realize that we're stronger than we think. We got through it together, and I know we can handle anything that comes our way." I hugged her tightly, feeling a mix of pride and sadness. My little girl had been through so much, but she was emerging stronger and more resilient. I promised myself that I would always be there for her, no matter what. As the months passed, our new life started to feel more normal. We made new friends, found new routines, and created new memories. The pain of the past never completely disappeared, but it no longer defined us. We were moving forward, one day at a time, and that was enough. Margaret's attempts to reconcile continued, but I remained firm in my decision. I had no intention of letting her back into our lives. Emily and I deserved peace and happiness, free from the toxic influence of her betrayal. Looking back, I realized that the ordeal had taught me valuable lessons about resilience, love, and the importance of standing up for myself and my loved ones. It wasn't the path I had chosen, but it had led us to a place where we could truly heal and grow, and for that, I was grateful. As Emily and I settled into our new life, we found comfort in our routines and the support of our new community. The move had been the right decision, providing a much-needed fresh start. We both threw ourselves into new activities and hobbies, finding joy in the little things. One day I came home from work to find Emily sitting at the kitchen table with a bright smile on her face. "Dad, I have some exciting news!" she exclaimed. She had joined a local volunteer group that helped with community projects, and they were organizing a charity event to raise funds for underprivileged kids. Emily had been elected as one of the event coordinators, and she was thrilled about the opportunity. Seeing her so passionate and engaged was a huge relief. It was clear she was finding her own path and purpose. "I'm so proud of you, Em," I said, hugging her. "This is going to be amazing." We spent the next few weeks preparing for the event together. Emily's enthusiasm was infectious, and I found myself getting involved as well. We designed flyers, reached out to local businesses for donations, and coordinated with volunteers. It was hard work, but it was incredibly rewarding. The day of the event arrived, and the turnout was fantastic. The park was filled with people, and there was a palpable sense of community and excitement in the air. There were games, food stalls, and live music, and everyone seemed to be having a great time. Emily was in her element, directing volunteers and ensuring everything ran smoothly. As I watched her interact with people, a sense of pride welled up inside me. She had come a long way from the heartbroken girl I had seen a few months ago. She was strong, capable, and compassionate. It was a testament to her resilience and the support system we had built around us. Later that evening, as we were cleaning up, a woman approached us. She introduced herself as Rachel and thanked us for organizing such a wonderful event. We chatted for a bit, and I learned that she was a single mom who had recently moved to the area with her son, who was around Emily's age. Rachel and I hit it off immediately. She was warm, funny, and easy to talk to. Over the next few weeks, we started seeing more of each other, often with our kids in tow. It was nice to have someone to talk to, someone who understood the challenges of being a single parent. One evening, after a particularly enjoyable dinner, Rachel and I found ourselves alone, sipping coffee on her porch. The kids were inside, watching a movie. "David, I just want to say thank you," Rachel said, looking at me with sincere eyes. "You've been a great friend, and I appreciate everything you've done for me and Max." I smiled. "You don't have to thank me, Rachel. You've been a great friend to me too. And Emily loves spending time with Max." We sat in comfortable silence for a few moments, enjoying the evening breeze. It was one of those perfect moments when everything felt right. As time went on, Rachel and I grew closer. We started dating, and it was a refreshing change from the toxic relationship I had with Margaret. Rachel was honest, kind, and supportive. She had a way of making me feel valued and appreciated, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Emily and Max got along wonderfully, and it wasn't long before we started doing things as a blended family. We went on weekend trips, celebrated holidays together, and supported each other in our endeavors. It felt natural, like we were meant to be. One day, while we were all having a picnic at the park, Emily pulled me aside. "Dad, I'm really happy for you," she said, hugging me tightly. "Rachel's amazing, and I can see how much she cares about you. You deserve this." Her words meant the world to me. It had been a long and difficult journey, but we had made it through. The wounds of the past were healing, and we were building a future filled with love and happiness. As I looked at Rachel, laughing and playing with the kids, I realized that life had a way of surprising us. What had started as a painful betrayal had led us to a new beginning, one filled with hope and promise, and for the first time in a long time I felt truly at peace. Life had finally settled into a rhythm that felt comfortable and secure. Rachel and I continued to grow closer, and our blended family felt more natural with each passing day. However, just when I thought the storm had passed, Margaret made a sudden and unexpected reappearance. One Saturday afternoon, as Rachel and I were preparing a barbecue in the backyard, the doorbell rang. Emily, who had been setting up the table, went to answer it. Moments later, she called out, her voice tight with tension. "Dad, you need to come here." I exchanged a worried glance with Rachel and walked to the front door, my heart sinking when I saw Margaret standing there. She looked disheveled, a stark contrast to the confident, manipulative woman I had known. Her eyes were red, and it was clear she had been crying. "David, can we talk?" she asked, her voice trembling. I sighed, stepping outside and closing the door behind me. "What do you want, Margaret?" She took a deep breath, looking around nervously. "I made a mistake, David. A huge mistake. I lost everything. My job, my friends, my reputation. I know I messed up, but I'm trying to make things right. I need your help." I felt a surge of anger. You expect me to help you after everything you've done? After you betrayed me and our daughter? You put Emily through hell and now you want my help? Margaret's eyes filled with tears. I know, and I'm sorry. I was selfish and stupid, but I've lost everything, David. I have nowhere else to turn. Seeing her like this stirred conflicting emotions in me. On one hand, I felt a deep sense of betrayal and anger. On the other, there was a part of me that remembered the good times we once shared. But those times were overshadowed by her lies and deceit. You need to leave, Margaret, I said firmly. Emily and I are finally starting to heal. We don't need you coming back and disrupting our lives. Margaret looked devastated, but she nodded. I understand. I'm sorry for everything. I just hope one day you can forgive me. I watched her walk away, a heavy weight lifting from my shoulders as the door closed behind her. When I turned around, Emily was standing in the hallway, her face pale. Is she gone? She asked quietly. I nodded. Yes, she's gone, and she won't be coming back. Emily looked relieved, but also conflicted. Do you think she meant what she said? That she's sorry? I sighed, pulling her into a hug. I don't know, Em, but it doesn't change what she did. We need to focus on us, on moving forward. The encounter with Margaret left me shaken, but it also reinforced my resolve to protect my family. Rachel was incredibly supportive, and we spent the evening talking through my feelings and fears. She had a way of bringing clarity and peace, something I deeply appreciated. A few days later, I received a call from Mike, the private investigator. David, there's something you need to know. Margaret's been trying to contact Emily through social media. I thought you'd want to be aware. My blood boiled. How dare she try to manipulate Emily again? I immediately called Emily and explained the situation. She assured me she hadn't responded and blocked Margaret's accounts. It was a stark reminder that Margaret's influence wasn't completely out of our lives. I decided to take legal action to ensure Margaret couldn't contact Emily. My lawyer filed a restraining order, which was granted quickly given the circumstances. It was another step in securing our peace and moving forward. Life continued, and with each passing day, the memories of the past faded a little more. Emily thrived, excelling in school and enjoying her volunteer work. Rachel and I grew even closer, our bond strengthened by the challenges we had faced together. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Rachel made a toast. To new beginnings and the strength to overcome anything, she said, raising her glass. We all clinked our glasses together, a sense of unity and hope filling the room. It hadn't been an easy journey, but we had found our way through the darkness. The future was bright, and for the first time in a long while, I felt truly content. As I looked around at my new family, I realized that life's unexpected twists and turns had led me to a place of happiness and fulfillment. The pain of Margaret's betrayal had been replaced by the joy of new relationships and the promise of a better future. And for that, I was grateful. Things were finally looking up, but life has a funny way of testing your newfound stability just when you think you're in the clear. One day, I received an unexpected phone call that threatened to upend our hard-won peace. It was Mike again. David, I've got some news. Jake's out on bail. What? How is that possible? I exclaimed, my mind racing. Jake's arrest had been a turning point, a moment where justice seemed within reach. Now it felt like everything was unraveling. His lawyer managed to get him out on a technicality. But that's not all. He's been asking around about you and Emily. A cold chill ran down my spine. Why would he be doing that? I don't know, but it can't be good. I'll keep an eye on him, but you need to be vigilant, Mike warned. I thanked him and hung up, my mind in turmoil. I couldn't let this disrupt our lives again. I had to protect Emily and Rachel. I immediately told Rachel everything, and we agreed to take extra precautions. We installed a new security system in the house and made sure Emily knew what to do if she saw Jake. A few days later, while I was at work, I received a frantic call from Emily. Dad, he's here. Jake's outside the house. My heart pounded. Stay inside, lock the doors, and call the police. I'm on my way. I sped home, my thoughts a blur of fear and anger. When I arrived, I saw Jake standing outside the house, yelling and trying to get in. The police were already there, holding him back. I rushed to Emily and Rachel, who were safely inside, shaken but unharmed. Jake was arrested for violating the restraining order and making threats. This time there was no bail. The ordeal left us all rattled, but it also brought us closer together. We realized just how strong our bond had become and how resilient we were in the face of adversity. Emily and I sat down for a long talk that night. She was scared, but she also felt empowered. "Dad, we've been through so much and we're still standing. I'm not going to let Jake or anyone else scare us anymore." Her words filled me with pride. Emily had grown so much from the ordeal, transforming from a broken-hearted girl into a strong, determined young woman. I hugged her tightly. "You're right, Em. We're stronger together, and we'll get through this too." Rachel's support was unwavering. She stayed with us through the entire ordeal, proving once again how much she cared for us. Her presence was a comforting reminder that we had built something real and lasting. A few weeks later, we received another piece of news that put everything into perspective. Margaret had been arrested for her involvement in Jake's schemes. She was facing serious charges and a lengthy prison sentence. It was a bittersweet moment. I didn't revel in her downfall, but it did bring a sense of closure. The toxic influences that had once dominated our lives were finally being dealt with. With Jake and Margaret both out of the picture, we could focus on our future. Emily continued to thrive in her volunteer work, and she even received a scholarship to a prestigious university. It was a testament to her resilience and hard work. We celebrated her achievements with a small party, surrounded by new friends, and the supportive community we had become a part of. One evening, as Rachel and I were sitting on the porch, she took my hand. "David, I'm so proud of how far we've come. I love you and Emily more than anything, and I'm excited for what the future holds." I squeezed her hand, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "I love you too, Rachel. You've been my rock through all of this. I couldn't have done it without you." As we sat there, watching the sunset, I realized that life had tested us in unimaginable ways, but through it all we had found strength, love, and a sense of purpose. The past no longer held us captive. Instead, it had shaped us into a family that could face anything together. We had come full circle, from betrayal and heartbreak to healing and hope. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, united and strong. With Margaret and Jake firmly in the past, our lives began to stabilize in ways I hadn't thought possible just a year ago. The weight of their betrayal had been replaced by a sense of relief and a newfound appreciation for the simple, joyful moments we now shared as a family. Emily's scholarship to the university was a huge milestone, and I couldn't have been prouder. We spent the summer preparing for her departure, shopping for dorm essentials, and planning her move. It was a bittersweet time, knowing she was about to embark on a new chapter in her life, but also feeling a twinge of sadness at how quickly she had grown up. One warm August evening, we threw a going-away party for Emily. Friends, neighbors, and family gathered in our backyard, and the air was filled with laughter and the smell of barbecue. Rachel and her son Max were there, along with several of Emily's friends from school and her volunteer group. As the sun began to set, Emily took a moment to address everyone. "I just want to thank you all for being here and for supporting me through everything. This past year has been really tough, but it's also shown me how strong and resilient we can be. I'm so grateful for my dad, Rachel, and all of you for helping me get to this point." Her words brought tears to my eyes, and I wasn't the only one. Rachel squeezed my hand, and I felt a deep sense of contentment. Emily's strength and positivity were infectious, and it felt like we had all come out the other side stronger. After the party, as we were cleaning up, Emily pulled me aside. "Dad, I'm really going to miss you, but I'm excited for this new adventure. I promise to visit often and call all the time." I hugged her tightly. "I'm going to miss you too, Em, but I know you're going to do amazing things. You've grown into an incredible young woman, and I couldn't be prouder." The following week, we packed up the car and drove Emily to her university. The campus was beautiful, and her dorm room overlooked a lush courtyard. As we helped her settle in, I couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and sadness. This was a new beginning for her, but it also meant letting go a little. We said our goodbyes, and as we drove back home, Rachel reached over and took my hand. "She's going to be fine, David. You've raised a strong, independent daughter." I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. "I know, it's just hard to let go." Back at home, the house felt strangely quiet without Emily's presence. Rachel and Max moved in with me shortly after Emily left, which helped fill the void. It was an adjustment, but it felt right. We were building a new family together, and it brought a sense of warmth and belonging. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Max looked up from his plate. "David, I just want to say thanks for everything. You've made me and my mom feel really welcome here." I smiled, touched by his words. "Your family, Max. We're all in this together." Rachel and I continued to grow closer, and our relationship deepened in ways I hadn't thought possible. We talked about our future, about the possibility of marriage and blending our families officially. It was an exciting prospect, and it felt like the natural next step. A few months later, I took Rachel on a weekend getaway to a cabin in the mountains. It was a beautiful, secluded spot, perfect for some quality time together. On the second evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, I took her hand and led her to a small clearing overlooking a valley. "Rachel, this past year has been a whirlwind of emotions, but through it all, you've been my anchor. I can't imagine my life without you," I said, pulling a small box from my pocket. "Will you marry me?" Tears welled up in her eyes as she nodded. "Yes, David, 1,000 times yes." We embraced, the world around us fading away as we celebrated this new step in our journey together. It was a moment of pure joy and affirmation that we were on the right path. Returning home as an engaged couple felt surreal. We shared the news with Emily and Max, who were thrilled for us. Our wedding plans quickly took shape, and we decided on a small, intimate ceremony with just close family and friends. As the big day approached, I reflected on the journey that had brought us to this point. The betrayals, the heartache, and the challenges had all led to a place of healing and hope. Rachel and I were building a life filled with love, trust, and mutual respect, and I couldn't have asked for more. The wedding day was perfect. Emily stood by my side as my best woman, and Max was Rachel's ring bearer. As we exchanged vows, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the second chance at happiness that life had given me. Looking into Rachel's eyes, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together as a family. Our love had been tested and had come out stronger, and I was ready to embrace this new chapter with open arms. Married life with Rachel was everything I had hoped for and more. We settled into a comfortable routine, and our home was filled with laughter, love, and a sense of peace that had been missing for so long. Emily thrived at university, excelling in her studies and making new friends. She visited often, bringing stories of her adventures and filling the house with her vibrant energy. One weekend, Emily came home with an unexpected surprise. She had met someone special at school, and she wanted us to meet him. His name was Alex, and from the moment he walked through the door, I could see why Emily was so smitten. He was polite, kind, and genuinely interested in getting to know us. At dinner, we exchanged stories and laughed together, the ease of conversation making it feel like Alex had always been part of our family. Seeing Emily so happy was all I could have asked for. She deserved every bit of joy after everything she had been through. As the months passed, Emily and Alex's relationship grew stronger. They supported each other in their studies and shared a passion for community service, something that had always been important to Emily. It warmed my heart to see her finding her path and building a life filled with purpose and love. Meanwhile, Rachel and I continued to nurture our relationship. We spent weekends exploring new places, trying out new recipes, and simply enjoying each other's company. Max had adapted well to our blended family, and he and Emily had developed a sibling-like bond that was wonderful to see. One evening, as Rachel and I were sitting on the porch, she brought up the idea of expanding our family. "David, I know it's a big step, but I've been thinking about us having a child together. What do you think?" Her words took me by surprise, but in a good way. The idea of having a child with Rachel, of creating a new life together, was incredibly appealing. I think it's a beautiful idea, Rachel. I'd love to start a family with you. We talked late into the night about our hopes and dreams for the future. It was a big decision, but one that felt right for us. The next few months were a whirlwind of excitement and anticipation as we began the journey of expanding our family. Rachel's pregnancy brought a new kind of joy into our lives. We went to doctor's appointments together, picked out baby names, and prepared the nursery. Emily and Max were over the moon at the thought of having a baby brother or sister. It felt like our family was coming full circle, growing and evolving in the best possible ways. The day our baby girl Lily was born was the happiest day of my life. Holding her in my arms, I felt an overwhelming sense of love and gratitude. She was perfect, a symbol of the new beginnings and endless possibilities that lay ahead. As Lily grew, our home became even more filled with laughter and love. Emily and Max were doting siblings, always eager to help and spend time with their baby sister. Rachel and I cherished every moment, knowing how precious and fleeting these early years were. One evening, as I was putting Lily to bed, Emily came into the nursery. She watched as I rocked Lily to sleep, a soft smile on her face. "Dad, I just wanted to say thank you for everything. You've been an amazing father, and I'm so grateful for the life we have now." I kissed Lily's forehead and laid her down in her crib, then turned to Emily, my heart full. "Thank you, Em. You've been my rock through all of this. I'm so proud of the person you've become." We hugged, a moment of shared understanding and love. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had led us to this place of peace and happiness. We had built a family that was strong, resilient, and filled with love. As the years passed, we continued to embrace the future with open hearts. Rachel and I watched as our children grew, celebrated their successes, and supported them through their challenges. Our home was a haven of love and laughter, a testament to the power of resilience and the beauty of second chances. Looking back, I realized that life's trials had brought us to a place of deep understanding and appreciation for one another. We had faced adversity and come out stronger, our bond unbreakable. The future was bright, and I knew that no matter what lay ahead, we would face it together as a family. And that was more than enough.